Good morning, madam. My name is Elifan. My number matrix is A20A1321. The specific way we use is to use the financial information to compare the Nestle Malaysia Berhad and Hafsa Industry Berhad analysis, trend analysis by using horizontal and vertical analysis. Then we also make a comparative analysis and recommend that both companies get better in the future.
Hello madam, my name is KHEE and my matrix number is A20A1394 2.0 business venture. First is Nestle Malaysia Berhad. The grocery condensed milk company was established in 1866. In 1905, the firm Henry Nestle Creator combined with grocery to form the Nestle Group. Nestle mission is good food, good life. Their goal and objective are to be the global combating nutrition, health and wellness organization. Next is Hafsa Industry Berhad. In 1958, Hafsa was started as a partnership by four brothers. Vision Hafsa including a brighter future by working together to create value. It had 5 mission statements. First, to provide high quality product and service. Second, to be the trusted partner and encourage win-win business relationship. Third, to achieve long-term sustainable profit and returns for our stockholders. Fourth, to be the preferred partner. The last is to be a good corporate citizen in harmony with the environment and the community we serve.
Greetings everyone, my name is KHIN with the matrix number A20A1298. Today I would like to present about the horizontal analysis for Nestle Malaysia Berhad. The first ratio is the liquidity ratio. In 2018, the current ratio was 0.68 times. In 2019, it was 0.65 times, meanwhile in 2020 was 0.59 times. The graph stated out that Nestle Malaysia Berhad decreased a bit year by year. In 2018, quick ratio was 0.38 times. In the year of 2019, it became 0.31 times, and in the year of 2020 was 0.27 times. Now, the next slide is about average collection period. Average collection period for Nestle Malaysia Berhad in 2018 was 40 days. In 2019, it was 34 days, meanwhile in 2020 was 32 days. Account receivable turnover in 2018 for Nestle Malaysia Berhad was 9.12 times. In 2019, it increased to 10.86 times and slightly increased in the year of 2020, which was 11.45 times. In 2018, inventory turnover for Nestle Malaysia Berhad was 6.38 times. In 2019, it became 6.24 times and decreased to 5.77 times in 2020. Let's continue for net working capital. Net working capital for Nestle Malaysia Berhad is increasing in negative ways. In 2018, it was negative RM566,663. In 2019, it became negative RM581,737. And in the year of 2020 was negative RM736,947. Now let's move on to the second ratio, which was the capital structure ratio. The debt ratio for Nestle Malaysia Berhad in 2018 was 77.02%. In 2019, it was decreased to 75.61%, but in the year of 2020, it was rapidly increased to 80.53%. The higher of the debt ratio could lead to financial risk for Nestle Malaysia Berhad. The third ratio is the asset management efficiency ratio. In 2018, total asset turnover for Nestle Malaysia Berhad was 1.94 times, meanwhile it increased to 2.02 times in 2019. It decreased to 1.89 times in 2020. In 2018, fixed asset turnover was 3.38 times. It was slightly decreased in 2019, which was 3.34 times. In the year of 2020, it was 3.04 times. Lastly, I would like to present about the profitability ratio for Nestle Malaysia Berhad. The gross profit margin for Nestle Malaysia Berhad for 3 years was declining. The operating profit margin in 3 years was decreasing. The net profit margin in 2018 to 2019 was increased but went down in 2020. Operating return on assets in 2018 to 2019 was increased but decreased in the year of 2020. Return on equity was increased from the year of 2018 to 2019 but slightly decreased in 2020. That's all for horizontal analysis about Nestle Malaysia Berhad. Thank you.
My name is CHOW. I will present the horizontal analysis of Hab Seng Berhad. Current ratio and credit ratio in Hab Seng Berhad. Based on the graph above, it shows a decreasing current ratio in these 3 years is 0.18 times in 2018, 1.96 times in 2019, and 1.8 times in 2020. And we found that asset test ratio was 1.83 times, 1.64 times, and 1.43 times for the year 2018, 2019, and 2020 respectively. Next is average correction period. According to the figure above, Hab Seng average correction period was 41.76 days in 2018, slightly increased to 43.4 days in 2019, and decreased 35.72 days in 2020. Account receivable turnover and inventory turnover. From the diagram above, we can understand that the ratio is lowering from 2018 to 2019, which is 8.74 times to 8.40 times, and it rises swiftly in 2020, which is 10.22 times. The inventory turnover ratio was increased from 7.78 times in 2018 to 8.41 times in 2019, and decreased to 7.49 times in 2020. Hab Seng net working capital is constantly decreased from 2018, 85,196,000 ringgit decreased to 72,186,786 ringgit in 2019, and keeping decreased to 64,216,426 ringgit in 2020. Debt ratio. We found that the debt ratio was 33.07% in 2018, 35.18% in 2019, and 38.49% in 2020.
Profitability ratio demonstrates a company overall efficiency in asset utilization and performance at the end of each quarter or year. The data has collected 3 years for 5 profitability ratio, which were gross profit margin, operating profit margin, net profit margin, operating return on asset, and return on equity for Nestle Malaysia Berhad. Based on the financial statement, gross profit margin for the company in 2018, 2019, and 2020 was 38.73%, 37.58%, and 36.32% respectively. Besides, the operating profit margin in 2018, 2019, 2020 was 16.64%, 16.59%, and 14.03% respectively. Furthermore, in 2018, the net profit margin was 11.94% and slightly increased in 2019, which was 12.19%, but decreased in 2020, which was 10.21%. For the operating return on asset, in 2018 was 32.25% and increased to 33.58% in 2019, but decreased to 26.54% in 2020. Finally, in 2018, the percentage of return on equity was 100.7% and increased to 101.2% in 2019, but decreased to 99.21% in 2020.
In 2020, the asset test ratio of Hab Seng Industry Berhad is 1.43 times. However, Nestle Malaysia Berhad is 0.27 times, and their difference is 1.16 times. This structure can conclude that the stability of financials can impact the performance of the firms, which is why Hab Seng Industry Berhad is greater than Nestle Malaysia Berhad. In 2020, the current ratio of Hab Seng Industry Berhad is 1.80 times, while Nestle Malaysia Berhad is 0.59 times, which shows the difference of 1.21 times. In conclude, performance than Nestle Malaysia Berhad based on the calculation current ratio in the year 2020. In 2020, the average calculation period of Hapsan Industry Berhad is 36 days, while Nestle Malaysia Berhad is 32 days, which shows Hapsan Industry Berhad is 4 days higher than Nestle Malaysia Berhad, and conclude that from the calculation of acid test ratio, it shows the Nestle Malaysia has better performance than Hapsan Industry Berhad in 2020.
Hi, my name is Xiang and my metric number is A20B1423. The account receivable turnover of Hapsan Industry Berhad is less than Nestle Malaysia Berhad. Hapsan Industry Berhad, with a lower turnover ratio, implies that should release its credits policy to ensure the timely collection of its receivables. The inventory turnover ratio of Nestle Malaysia Berhad is liquid than Hapsan Industry Berhad. Nestle Malaysia Berhad might have increased their inventory because the firm's customer depends on it not to be out of stock and to be able to meet their inventory needs quickly. In 2020, the debt ratio of Hapsan Industry Berhad is 38.9%, while Nestle Malaysia Berhad is 80.53%. The debt ratio of Nestle Malaysia Berhad is higher than Hapsan Industry Berhad. Hapsan Industry don't spend much of profit paying debts than Nestle Malaysia Berhad. Based on the calculation of debt ratio, Hapsan Industry has the best performance than Nestle Malaysia Berhad in 2020.
Good day everyone, my name is CHONG with number metric A20A1306. Now let's see about the net working capital ratio between Hapsan Industry Berhad and Nestle Malaysia Berhad. In 2020, net working capital ratio of Hapsan Industry Berhad is 64,260,426, while Nestle Malaysia Berhad is negative 736,947. Nestle Malaysia Berhad should increase their inventory turnover ratio. This is because the overstocked warehouse can be graveyard for liquidity. So this can conclude that Hapsan Industry Berhad had a better performance on net working capital ratio compared to Nestle Malaysia Berhad.
The bar chart illustrates comparison asset management efficiency ratio between Hapsan Industry Berhad and Nestle Malaysia Berhad in year 2020. Generally, fixed asset turnover ratio of Hapsan Industry Berhad is higher than Nestle Malaysia Berhad. However, total asset turnover of Hapsan Industry Berhad is lower than Nestle Malaysia Berhad in 2020. The higher the fixed asset turnover ratio help investors understand how effectively companies are using their asset to generate sales. The higher the ratio, the more effectively they use their asset to generate revenue.
There are 5 profitability ratios, but the first is the gross profit margin. The first can be seen the gross profit margin of Hapsan Industry Berhad is 31.95%, while Nestle Malaysia Berhad is 36.32%, but the differences is 4.73%. It can show that after subtracting a firm's cost of goods sold from the sales, Nestle Malaysia Berhad is still well above the management controls expenses to determine the firm's profit margin, compared with Hapsan Industry Berhad in 2020. The second is operating profit margin. In 2020, Hapsan Industry Berhad will achieve 60.81%. However, Nestle Malaysia Berhad is 40.03%, with the differences is 2.78%. While comparing it with the management of Nestle Malaysia Berhad, Hapsan Industry Berhad will did well with managing its income statement by keeping costs and expenses low relative to sales. Therefore, a firm can get higher operating profit margin by getting more sales from consumer that sales to current customer is more profitable to gain the new one customer. The next is net profit margin. The net profit margin in Hapsan Industry Berhad is 12.34%. However, Nestle Malaysia Berhad is 10.21%, but the differences is 2.13% in 2020. Thus, every 1 ringgit for sales, Hapsan Industry Berhad will gain 0.1234 cent in profit after paying all the expenses. However, Nestle Malaysia Berhad only earn 0.1021 cent. Clearly, Hapsan Industry Berhad has get higher net income per ringgit for sales revenue than Nestle Malaysia Berhad. The fourth of the profitability ratio is operating return on asset. In 2020, the percentage of operating return on asset in Hap Seng Industry Berhad is 24.05%, while Nestle Malaysia Berhad is 26.54%, with the differences is 2.49%. It can show that Nestle Malaysia Berhad generates 0.2654 cents of operating profit of every 1 ringgit of its invest asset. That is better than Hap Seng Industry Berhad, which is generate an average 0.2405 cents for every 1 ringgit for their asset. Last but not the least, return on equity of Hap Seng Industry Berhad in year 2020 is 28.89%, while Nestle Malaysia Berhad is achieving 99.21% by the differences is 70.32%, which is a large gap on this ratio. Hence, Nestle Malaysia Berhad receive a higher return on their equity than the shareholders in the Hap Seng Industry Berhad. Conclusion and recommendation. As we know, debt ratio is measure of proportion of asset paid for with debt. However, the table in financial ratio shows debt ratio of Hap Seng Industry Berhad and Nestle Malaysia Berhad has increased by 3 years, which is 2018, 2019 and 2020. Such that gross profit margin, operating profit margin and net profit margin of Hap Seng Industry Berhad and Nestle Malaysia Berhad shows gradually decline. However, the one of the strategy to increase the profitability, increase revenue is commanding higher price through successful branding. In the future, these both companies can gain the stable profit by focusing working on the local authorities, stakeholders, and business partners to make sure they can continuously manufacture their food and beverage.